Hey everybody, this is Chris, and I think I've started my live stream. Looks like I've got a healthy signal. If this is your first time, welcome to Comic Tropes live streaming, something I do every once in a while. I love to draw. I always want to get better, and so I'll often sort of do a quick sketch and do some inking while taking questions from you. So welcome back if you've been here before, and if this is your first time, welcome. I'm just basically posting that I've gone live to some of my social media accounts. So just want to let anybody that follows this channel know that we're about to go live. And let's see, we've already got some people showing up. Hello to Fernando. Hola. How are you, sir? And hello to, okay, a bunch of people jumping in all of a sudden. Hello to Davisma. Welcome for your first time. There's Adolf and Ellis Grieger, regular. Hello to Michael and Fonzie, Charlie, J. Andrew World, Eric Whitehurst, Gilgamesh, watchful and harmonious subscriber. Wow, I can't keep up, but nice to see all of you. Let's see. I am from Alberta, Canada. It's cold here too. You know, it's starting to get a little warmer. Here in the Pacific Northwest near Seattle lately, fortunately. We got hit with a little more snow than we'll typically get hit with, but it melted away pretty fast, so that's nice. Yeah, getting a little warmer, sort of light jacket weather, or hoodie. Let's see. Welcome to Snake Eater and Advanced Space Ghost and RC. If I don't catch your name, it's really just that... it's going by so fast. If I don't get your question, that is not me ignoring anyone. I'm mostly going to be drawing or inking, really, and I will try to look up frequently. My computer's over here behind the camera that's aimed at me, and I'll every once in a while take a question from you all. That's my goal. Again, I'm just posting some links to some of my social media accounts so that folks have an opportunity to see if they want to follow along. Anyway, hope everybody's having a good weekend. I only get one day off, not two, so I'm actually pretty exhausted. I was up pretty late editing the last Comic Tropes and spent some time on the next one. I'm going to do this, and then after like about maybe an hour and a half, I'll probably have to take off because I am meeting some friends tonight, so that'll be good. Let's see. Hello from Quebec. Let's see. Somebody's from Texas, Bakersfield. Wow, that's awesome. Thanks for all the kind words. Appreciate the support, for real. Yes, I did see your pencils, J. Andrew. Very, very NSFW, I think you could call it. Thank you for the kind words, everybody. Hope you feel better, Clay. All right. Well, definitely feel free to reach out with any questions about either the show or pop culture or just whatever strikes your fancy. I'll do my best to address them. I felt like drawing Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe. It's the stuff that I grew up with, folks. So just been banging out an illustration today, sort of trying to refine it with just a few pencil lines. But mostly what I'm going to do here is I'm trying to focus on my inking. And I every once in a while do have like some sunlight coming in through the window. I've done as much as I can to block it, but you will see some awkward sunlight on my face. Nothing I can really do about that until later. But it's setting, so we'll see. Maybe I'll luck out and it'll fade away sooner rather than later. Anybody else working on any sort of creative projects these days? It doesn't have to be drawing, it could be writing or gardening or cooking, who knows what, but just definitely curious what else folks out there are up to these days. Just going to throw in some bolder lines on sort of the foreground elements, and then sort of head back in and do some finer details here and there. Who is that masked man? Oh, it's Hoodie Coco, my best bud. He's if you see there, Hooded Cobra Commander 788. He also has a YouTube channel, and he reviews G.I. Joe. So we obviously have a love of G.I. Joe in common, so we talk a bunch. And he's got a great channel if you're interested in G.I. Joe. Great reviews. Great. Sometimes I think I would love to do sort of some sort of toy reviews, sort of from my childhood, but there's certain things that I like these days. I should have done that with something finer. This is a little thick. It takes a lot of work to research that stuff, to review and discuss and analyze toys and stuff. A lot of research, a lot of trivia involved in that stuff. So I don't know. If you ever go back into my channel's history, you'll see that like when I was brand new, coming up on like 3 years now, I was always doing a weekly comic tropes, but I was trying other things as well. I was interested in seeing if people would be interested in me like analyzing either Lego sets or Hot Toys, like foot tall detailed action figures, but there wasn't too much interest there. So I still might do it someday if I ever have more time, because I like doing that. But obviously my main passion, and fortunately the thing that people seem to connect to, comic book analysis and history. Let's say I've been writing a comic script for a story that I've constantly throwing away and rewriting again and again for about half a year. Well, that is a tough challenge. Writing is all about rewriting, and it's about letting go of elements that you initially might have thought were like the strong points. Sometimes you have to be willing to throw that out for the good of the overall story. And on the other hand, you have to sort of know when to put the pencil down or typewriter in this case, and sort of say, nope, that's it. I'm going to go with this and see what happens. Because if you revise forever, you'll never get anywhere, unfortunately. So that's a challenge, deciding when it's time to say that you're happy with a draft. Let's see. What was your first G.I. Joe toy? It was actually Major Blood, I'm pretty sure. I just realized that the focus is off here. Let me do a quick adjustment with my OBS, and I'll be right back to drawing and answering questions. But yeah, I don't remember how I got Major Blood. I think a friend just gave me one because he had an extra. Actually, now that I say that, I'm positive that that was the case. I think my friend Bill, who was really into G.I. Joe, happened to have 2 Major Blood figures. So one day he gave me his second one, which didn't have any of the accessories. But as a kid that didn't like have a ton of toys when I was in grade school, and I wasn't poor, just, we didn't have tons of money, and I didn't have tons of toys. It was a big deal. I pored over every aspect of Major Blood, who's far from my favorite character out there, but there is always going to be some sort of nostalgic appreciation for that character just because he was the first toy I ever got within G.I. Joe. Yeah, I can definitely remember like those times, early 80s. Major Blood was my first G.I. Joe, and Sunstreaker was my first Transformers character. Not a super popular one, but I always liked it. Hello, TARDIS Rider. Hello, Retro Advanced. Who's my favorite character from G.I. Joe? It's a good question. I'm trying to think of like which ones have sort of gone through the most. Sometimes I think it's Destro. Destro's gone through a lot of changes, and he's not purely evil. He's got a code of honor, but he's not a good guy at all. Destro interests me. A lot of the bad guys interest me. I like Zartan. He's very sci-fi, but I really like Zartan and the Dreadnoks. That sort of biker gang aspect really fascinates me. And of course I love Snake Eyes and Stalker. Those are some of the sort of main characters in G.I. Joe, at least the comics, I should say, which are... I was I watched a little of the cartoon. Wasn't necessarily like a massive fan of the cartoon. I liked it, sometimes more than others, but like I really, really liked the comic book by Larry Hama. And if you've watched my show for any amount of time, you've probably seen me do more than one review about it. And that's because I just, I like it so much. It was an important part of introducing me into more comics. I really got in through Transformers. I was a little more into Transformers. So Transformers was the first comic that I bought for myself. And then I quickly just wanted to try something else since I was, at the convenience store and I was seeing all the other comics. I just sort of discovered them. I had a couple paper routes. I had some extra money at, fairly young age. And it was pretty obvious, even to me as like a bigger Transformers fan, that the G.I. Joe comics were much better than the Transformers comics. And then I was like, oh, well, maybe I should just sort of try a smattering of everything to see what's best. And I discovered Spider-Man and Batman pretty quickly. Those were some of my early favorites in mainstream superheroes. And then pretty shortly after that, I was discovering a lot of stuff like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and The Tick, sort of indie black and white comics. And I'm glad that I discovered so many different kinds of comics in rapid succession, because it really showed me that there was a lot to appreciate outside of what I might typically want to look at. I liked Larry Hama on Wolverine as well. I think he did a great run on Wolverine, and he was, he had a great penciler at those times. Mark Silvestri, that's still some of my absolute favorite work by Mark Silvestri is his run on Wolverine. I think he did a fantastic job on that. Just sort of making my way around the sort of foreground elements and the outline and stuff like that, and then we'll switch things up by going to maybe a finer pen and throwing in some details and stuff, and throwing in some shadows. I'll come back to some thick brushes. Have I watched Umbrella Academy yet? Some. I think I've watched 6 episodes out of maybe, I think there's 10. So I'd love to just be able to binge it. Unfortunately, just obviously very, very busy. So not a lot of time to purely binge. Basically been watching it while we have dinner, my fiance and I. And I like it. But I haven't seen how it ends, so can't speak to all of it yet. What's a good Hulk run? Definitely Peter David's run. That was pretty acclaimed for a reason. So look up him. He wrote a great run. There's been a lot of good Hulk runs, though. I think the current Immortal Hulk is pretty darn strong, and sort of goes back to Hulk's origins as sort of a horror character. I mean, Hulk himself wasn't necessarily purely horrific, but he was clearly based on stuff like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Frankenstein's monster. So to go back to that idea of having him as a bit of a horrific character, I think is a good angle to play into. See where that goes. What are some indie comics you'd recommend that you haven't had a chance to talk about on the channel yet? What haven't I talked about on the channel? There's a lot of stuff that I'd recommend that's been published through both Fantagraphics and Drawn and Quarterly. I'd recommend looking up anything written and drawn by Michael DeForge. That's just some pretty surreal stuff that will sometimes deal with like either nature or family issues, and it's pretty cool and weird. I would recommend maybe Hip Hop Family Tree or Street Angel. Those are by 2 talented guys that have recently also started YouTubing. Ed Piskor did Hip Hop Family Tree and is currently doing X-Men, what's it called? I keep thinking of the title of individual stories, but he's like recapping all of X-Men's history into like sort of one overall volume. So that's pretty cool. Street Angel is about this homeless skateboarder. She's like the best in the world. She has some pretty cool adventures. What else is good for indie stuff? Boy, you know, this is where I really miss going to the annual Small Press Expo, which when I lived on the East Coast, I'd go to every year. That's where I discover a lot of good indie stuff. Can you think of anyone who drew very good fantasy characters, specifically giants? Not necessarily off the top of my head giants, but in terms of like fantasy, I think that, you know, you go to like somebody like Charles Vess, if you go to some of the stuff by Barry Windsor Smith, depending on how you feel sort of about elves and stuff. I think the stuff by Richard and Wendy Peeney on ElfQuest is interesting. Correct, Matt Fritz. This is Snake Eye, the original Snake Eyes, or at least my take on it. I have not read Identity Stunt. Sorry, can't say that I have. I did see the Hellboy trailer. Boy, I'm a big fan of Hellboy. If you've watched my review, you know that like Mike Mignola, one of my personal all-time favorite artists. I really, really love all the Hellboy comics. There have been some fantastic artists on there. Guy Davis, Duncan Fegredo, some really awesome artists as well as Mike Mignola. I want to be excited for this movie, but I don't know, man. I don't know what they're going for. In terms of the characters and stories they're adapting, good, cool. But some of that, and honestly, even Hellboy himself, I will give them credit. Hellboy himself looks really cool. But some of those computer graphics, there's so much computer graphics, and it doesn't look like very modern, good computer graphics. I'm stunned. I'm definitely going to see Captain Marvel. I'll see that right away. I'm excited for Captain Marvel. Kingdom Come. Really, really solid comic. I was trying to think. I was reading something the other day that I felt like was ripping off Kingdom Come, but it's not coming to me right now. Whatever. All right, let's switch it up. I'm going to switch to a different pen. See how that does. Carrie Nord did some Fantasy Giants and Conan comics for Dark Horse. All right, so there's a good recommendation. No, I never got into D&D as a kid. I guess I felt like, that was too nerdy, a bridge too far. Had some friends out here introduce me to it. I love it. I'm having a blast. And certainly wish that I had discovered it earlier, because I really do like it. It's quite fun. You ever consider reviewing all the different incarnations of Captain Marvel? Yeah, I have considered that. Not sure when I will, but I definitely will consider it. Monstrous, I still haven't read. I bought the first volume. I haven't read it yet. It looks pretty. Looks good. I've heard of Northlanders. Haven't read it. I didn't realize that it was by Brian K. Vaughan, though. Oh, wow. Well, that actually prioritizes it if that's the case. I'm a huge fan of Brian K. Vaughan, and I honestly did not realize that he wrote Northlanders. Okay, so that's news to me. I did not know that. Huh. How does he fit that in with, Saga and everything? That's amazing. I met him in person a couple times back before he really sort of blew up. He'd done a run on Swamp Thing, and I met him right when he was promoting issue 1 of Runaways. And what a nice guy. Smart. Really, really, really cool dude. Hello, Scott. Glad you caught a live one. What are your favorite TMNT stories? Um, Almost anything by like Eastman and Laird, because that's sort of when I started reading. So all that early stuff plus stuff like Return to New York, and as I reviewed recently, I really liked The River by Rick Veitch. And I like the first several volumes. I think I've read the first 10 volumes of the IDW run, where they're sort of just, like recontextualizing everything. I like that a lot. Oh, Brian Wood. Okay, that makes more sense. I was like, Brian Vaughn. I had no idea. Yeah, okay. No, then I have not read Northlanders, but I've heard people mention it, and I do like stories about Vikings, which I believe is what it is. About like 25% of my heritage is strong Scandinavian roots, so definitely find sort of Viking culture and history interesting. So yeah, I would definitely like to read that. Thing I thought was cool about Snake Eyes when I was a kid was the fact like he's great at martial arts and stuff, but he wasn't like he wouldn't let himself get drawn into fist fights just to prove how good he was or anything. He was a soldier. He was specifically a commando, and he would like carry an Uzi and grenades, and he was just all about getting the task accomplished as efficiently as possible. He was kind of the perfect soldier. Like, he was G.I. Joe's version of Wolverine. He was cool. Great in a comic book. Can understand why he's never really been quite as big a deal like in, say, the cartoon or anything. He doesn't talk. Any thoughts about the rumor about Disney shutting down Marvel, possibly? I don't believe that that's true. How could that possibly be true? It's worth too much. I just can't believe it. I think that people are like making that rumor up themselves. You think Moto likes me? Let's see. Yeah, surely they would shut down their most profitable movie division and all the current rides being built. Exactly. They're like building rides and stuff at Disney World and the parks and stuff. They've got like, why would they shut any of this down? Their movies are all making like incredible like amounts of money. Like even like, sort of like a third tier property like Ant-Man is still making a massive profit for them. The publishing. Well, if they shut down the publishing, then they don't have stories to draw from, and or toys. Like people aren't going to just no. I just can't see that happening. I just can't. That'd be a weird business decision. It just doesn't make sense to me. I can't believe it. I really can't. I'd have to see the math on that one. Show me your math. How does this make sense financially? Obviously, I'm drawing something here that I didn't create, but it's just sort of fun. It's interesting how strong sort of nostalgia can be, isn't it? Because it just like is a fun idea to work on these things that you grew up liking. I don't know why that is. Like, because I'm also excited about like my own original ideas, but I still like find this very fun. What's out there like your favorite sort of character or property or something from growing up? It could be a toy, a cartoon, a comic, whatever. I'm just curious, like, what else stands out as something you'd love the opportunity to work on? I don't know the Moto controversy. I don't know what that means. I really don't. Sorry, I missed something. The black uniform on Snake Eyes helped him stand out from the green. Yeah, it did. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I got in a fight with an editor at Marvel on a panel once about how Disney would screw up Marvel Comics. I don't think they have. There's still a lot. I do think that they could benefit from some new life with writers, which they always sort of like need. But there are some good comics. There's all you see. If once you have read comics for a while, you quickly realize that there have always been both good and bad comics in every era, and that's just nobody's ever been like consistently like everything's good or consistently everything's bad. So it's just a matter of having some perspective and understanding that not everything's going to be great, but not everything's going to be terrible. And it moves sort of in, not exactly cycles, but hills and valleys. Black Panther, Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy shows they've run out of movies. Those are D-list characters. Wait, what? Those movies all made tons of money. So like, how are they D-list characters if people like them? There was definitely a time when they weren't like as big as some of the others, but they're all like, I don't know that I agree with that. I don't know about you guys. I find drawing so relaxing. I mean, it can definitely be frustrating if you don't feel like you're quite getting exactly what's in your head onto the page. But at the same time, like, I do find it relaxing overall. This is my zen, more or less. I'd love to see Invincible turned into a Netflix series. I believe Invincible is being turned into an animated movie, isn't it? I thought that was the current project, if I'm remembering correctly. I need more Mountain Dew. Yeah, exactly. Iron Man was definitely a second-tier hero until his movie came out and made him popular. But that's the way of a lot of characters. Like, a lot of what we know as like important, say, supporting characters or powers and stuff on characters have over the years evolved from secondary media. Not necessarily like Superman. A lot of elements came from the radio show, his animated show. Like a lot of elements came from outside of the comics at first. The comic strips, and then if there's a good idea, it gets folded in to the ongoing serialized story. That's definitely the case with Iron Man. Iron Man was like, always kind of a important character, but certainly second tier, not like the bestseller. But as soon as they cast the right guy, Robert Downey Jr., that blew up. Why The Last Man should have been a TV series already. That thing's been in development hell since it came out. Like, it would make a good serialized story, better than a movie. But it is being made into a TV series right now, right? I think they've already cast a bunch of the main characters. So, finally gonna happen. Hopefully it comes out good. Hello. A Mountain Dew? Thanks. My fiance must be watching my stream because all of a sudden she just had a Mountain Dew for me after I think I just said that I wanted one. That's funny. Hello, Connor. Hello, Yarp. Hello, Chris Tingy. Hello, Retro Advance. Nice to see so many folks in here. Yeah, exactly. I don't think DC is really making Time Warner money either, and they've just been fine with it, just sort of churning out intellectual property, and, you know, as long as they can basically break even or something, it's not a big deal at all. Say you were stranded on a deserted island, but you could have your favorite restaurant's food wash up with you. For some reason, there was a bunch of it being transported on the same ship with you. What would you choose? Like, what would, if you had to sort of like at least get your favorite food for a while, like what would it be? This marker's dying. Where did oh? Sometimes I misplace my good marker. Connor says, I'd love to see more vids on your breakdowns of manga sales versus American sales. Do you think one market is dominating? Not dominating. Just you know, they're not really competing directly. So you know, per capita, manga definitely far outsells American comics. I just realized it's the sun's setting quickly. I'm going to turn on a light in here. Be right back. I'm still here. I'm still looking at everything. There we go. Just felt like it was getting a little dark. Oh, hi. You got me drawing. Speaking of drawing, Mr. Temporal has one of my intros. Oh, wow, Jay. You got the Ecstatics on Omnibus. I hope you enjoy it. I personally love it. I really do. No, Clay, this is his original mask in version 1 was more of sort of like a, just like almost a regular ski goggles. It was goggles. And then after that, he switched to a visor the following year. Yeah. So what I'm trying to draw is sort of my my take on Snake Eyes as he originally appeared in the toys and comics and even cartoon. And I'll look up in just a sec to see what else is being discussed or asked of me. Let's see. Did I go to art school? No, nope, I did not. Growing up, that was never really presented to me as like a thing that people did, so I didn't really know about that as a realistic option. So while it's not a regret, I could definitely see myself as having been very happy if I had known about and gone to some sort of art school. I think that I would have enjoyed that very much. It just wasn't presented to me, and just keep in mind that, like, you know, in the days before the internet, you know, you were exposed to the people that you knew, and you didn't always have a wider perspective of the world at large. So that may sound kind of like ignorant that I didn't know about art school, and it's like maybe on some level I was aware that art schools existed, you know, that there were artists out there and people trained. I'm sure I was sort of aware of it on that level. was I didn't know what it took to necessarily get into an art school and what career opportunities were available. I just didn't know about that. So yeah, favorite comic tropes episode. I am more proud of certain ones than others. Just that I remember them. I really liked my episode on lettering. I just really that was a topic that meant something to me. It got decent views, nothing like that would blow anyone away, but that was an episode that I very much enjoyed doing. Oh wow, let's see. Sansanity is kind enough to send a super chat and said, "Just got the blaster drawing. It's probably the coolest thing on my wall." Well, glad that it got there safely. That's awesome. That's really awesome. I'm glad you enjoy it, and definitely a cool character, man. I love those Mad Max movies, so that's awesome. I'm just glad that it went somewhere where it will be appreciated. That's basically almost the most an artist can realistically ask, is that their artwork ends up somewhere where it's appreciated. So I'm very happy to hear that. Thank you. Thank you for the support. Very much appreciated. Yeah. Look at that. You guys are also positive. I'm very grateful to have the viewership that I do. I hope you all know that. All I can do is try to constantly deliver the best content I can make, and the thing that makes me different is it's going to jump around and cover all sorts of different eras and topics and creators. So hopefully you at least just don't get bored by it. I know that not everything will connect to you as much as everything else, but I try to give a variety of comics because there's just so much out there. There's just so much out there, good and bad. It's fascinating. Yeah, I like that. This is coming out all right. Oops, I missed a question. Sorry. I love the broader scope of the channel because it shows a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have known about before. Well, great. Yeah, hopefully you find it interesting. Even if it's like not a comic that you necessarily want to buy, hopefully the fact that like we're just like at least discussing something gives more perspective and lets people go like, okay, well, that's not for me, but I'm aware that it's out there and I can like at least see how it could have maybe influenced something that I do like. That's my hope anyway. Well, who knows? Your mileage may vary as to how successful I am on that point. Exhausted. You ever feel like you just need a break from things and you just know that you ain't getting one anytime soon? That's where I am right now. I mean, I know that I'm not getting much time off anytime soon. I know that I don't have the money to afford a big trip, and it's just wearying. It's a challenge some days, but we'll get through it. I'm gonna send some of you guys to work in my place. Space Force comic. That does not sound like a good idea. Let's see. Oh yeah, Raw. C-Man asks, is Raw worth reading? Totally worth reading. It's an anthology, so like the stories that you're going to enjoy are going to be hit and miss, but there's a lot of creativity on display there. It's pretty awesome. Crossed comics? Are you talking about Crossed by is it Garth Ennis that writes those? If so, I think I read one. That's it. Congrats for being able to take a week off, Black Phoenix. That's awesome. Jamie Tron says, literally just watched your Transformers video. Oh, nice. At the same time as the mediocre US comic, the Transformers UK comic was mind-blowing and incredibly good quality. Outsold 2000 AD. I've read a bunch of it. I agree that there are some cool stories in there. So, yeah, it is interesting. Like, also just, I feel like it was slightly more respected by the Marvel UK publisher than it was back home. Like, I think that it wasn't. I don't know. The trick with licensed comics has always been that they don't really sell as well, so the artists get paid less, and if you're paying less, you get like sort of usually a lower tier. Every once in a while, there are exceptions. So that's cool. You either get somebody that's passionate, or you get like a property that, at least for a while, pays a lot more. So you can like sort of hire a top tier artist. But yeah, licensed comics are a quirky beast. Alex Ross and G.I. Joe. I missed something, all right. Any go-to obscure recommendations? Yeah, probably. It just, sometimes it can be hard when I'm put on the spot to try to think of something obscure, because by its nature, that's something that I'm not going to, like, think of off the top of my head. So give me a moment here, and I'll see if I can think of anything obscure. I don't know. Nothing's really coming to me right now. You know, one book that I thought was really cool that's possibly underrated is Scalped. It's pretty sure that's a Vertigo book written by Jason Aaron. That one's worth a read. About crime on a Native American reservation, and one of their members that has joined the FBI, so he goes sort of undercover to unroot that corruption, but it's deeper than that. That's just sort of the 10,000 mile high look down at it. I don't know that that's obscure. It's just something that popped in my head just now. If you could have any superpower, what would you choose? Ooh, maybe super healing, so that you just in really perfect health. That would be kind of nice. Cool. Let's see. Hooded Cobra Commander says that he won't be skipping his live stream this week. I know he wasn't feeling 100% this week, but Hooded Cobra Commander does a live stream for his viewers every Tuesday evening, and it's pretty good. So if you ever want to get deep into the weeds on G.I. Joe anything, that's your guy to have a conversation with. Really positive community, too. He has some really wonderful viewers that are really positive and thoughtful and creative. Mine are, too, just saying that, like, so are his. Zach's timeout power from Saved by the Bell. Now that's a good power. Have I read any horror novels? Oh, sure, lots. I've read tons of Stephen King. Tons of it, especially growing up, and when I was a kid, like stuff like Red Dragon and Silence of the Lambs. Before that was adapted into movies, that Red Dragon especially creeped me out as a kid. Boy. There's this isn't really like a spoiler. It's more just like some of the premise of Red Dragon. There's a serial killer in it, and he in part chooses his victims because I think if I'm remembering this right, I could be slightly misremembering, but he works, I think, developing photos somewhere so that he can sort of like, almost know something about the family and like how their house is laid out and so on. And I remember he like chose his victims by like people that had like a house with like a porch or like, slider that would like open to the woods in the back so that he could stay in the dark and look in on the family. Oh man, like I grew up with a house like that, and that freaked me out. Just the idea. Yeah, that still freaks me out to think about. Yeah, the William Peterson adaptation one is pretty darn good. Hey, J Muse. Let's see. Knowing is half the battle. Exactly right. He was called the Tooth Fairy. That's right, he was. I can't remember why. It's been too many years since I've seen that. I want the power to snap my fingers and the dishes get done. That would save so much time. I would love that power too. Yes. There's nothing wrong with that idea at all. Sometimes I've thought that like one of the most useful superpowers could just be the ability to like be like Mystique and look like anybody. So that you could just sort of look like somebody in a position of power or celebrity and see what their life is like for, a little while. And then just sort of pop out, go like, okay, that was interesting. I'm done. One of the tricks with drawing a character that's like all in black is picking like what elements to shade and what not, so that you can still like indicate what they're wearing and their equipment and stuff, because you're working in just black and white, and that's really not realistic, because of course in real life everything is shades of color. So it's quite strange sometimes to work on certain pieces like where somebody's like all in black or really dark colors and trying to figure out how to interpret that. That's a lot of decisions that you're constantly making. Like I'm making tons and tons of little decisions here, and I don't know if they're all going to be right until I sort of see more of the full picture. This is what I try to figure out, like what by doing this kind of stuff. Have you thought about doing an episode on inking? Oh, of course. Yeah. I'm sure I will at some point. Yeah. Good idea, J. Andrew, but I definitely have been planning on it. Yes, Scott, I will definitely be doing an episode on Bone this year for sure. Oh, cool. Jamie says that he's checked out Cartoonist Kayfabe. I think that's a really wonderful channel. There's a lot to learn there about comics. I have not read the Transformers Ghostbusters crossover. No. I didn't even know that was a thing to be. Well, I guess I heard that there was a toy that was being made, so I guess it's not a complete surprise to learn that that was based on a comic, because, yeah, it came from somewhere, didn't it? Okay. Just figuring out some things here. Sorry, I went quiet for a minute there. Micronauts. Yeah, Micronauts could be definitely a lot of fun to talk about at some point. No question. You get reckless with the pen. Yeah, I understand. That's a challenge. What's my favorite crazy golden age hero? 7-Eleven. I already reviewed him, but 7-Eleven. This guy that like, he goes to prison for a crime that he didn't commit. Instead of owning up to it or anything, he he breaks out of prison, but he goes back every night. Like he breaks out of prison after he hears about like a crime from like other criminals, and he goes and stops it, and then he voluntarily like sneaks back into prison to spend his life in prison. There's some deep-seated issues there to examine. I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, that's my personal favorite. I've come across a lot of stuff that I like. I really had fun with this Black Condor one. There's some really weird stuff going on there, but my absolute favorite is still 7-Eleven. It's just too weird. You know what I'd love to go to now that I've got this show? And I went to it a bunch of times back when I lived in the DC area, but I would love to go back to the comic book museum in Baltimore. That would be really cool to see if I could do like an episode there or something. If you live anywhere close to driving distance to Baltimore, I definitely recommend checking out the comic book museum. Jeppy's Comic Book Museum. It's the guy that founded and runs Diamond Distribution, so obviously he has access to a lot of old, valuable comics, and they're all in a museum. You can see them, along with a lot more to do with comics. It's pretty cool stuff. You heard they moved? Oh, maybe they did. Didn't Golden Age Daredevil fight with boomerangs? Well, there was a different Daredevil. It wasn't the Marvel Comics version. There was a different Daredevil. So you might have used boomerangs. I don't know. Would you do a graphic novel version of a book? Would love to see you do Phantoms by Dean Koontz. What do you mean? Would I do a graphic novel version? You mean review it? I guess I don't quite understand the question. I'm sorry. Speaking of Disney, didn't they make Goofy comics? Sure, they made everybody comics. Disney was for decades the most popular comic book property in the world. So, pretty huge, pretty popular. Dun, 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 dun. Having fun drawing with all of you. With all of you. Who's your favorite author? Tough question. Let me think. Wow. This just shows that I'm not reading books as much as I should be, that I don't have like a go-to right now, because I definitely used to read a lot. I'm trying to think of somebody who like I'll get every book by them. You know, in some ways it may be shallow, but I probably have read more books by Stephen King than anybody else. But I also like a lot of classics. I love reading stuff by Charles Dickens. I like all his stuff. I like Shakespeare a lot. That's plays, but I'm just saying that those are authors I actually really love reading. And then a book that I really remember loving quite a bit was The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. So that's sort of related to comics. Definitely recommend that. Oh yeah, Isaac Asimov. Oh man, I used to read everything by him as a teenager. That's a good one. That's a good one. Arthur C. Clarke. I've read Bret Easton Ellis, J.R.R. Tolkien. These are some great suggestions where I have read at least most, if not all, of their work. Would I do a Bill Mantlo episode? Absolutely. I've definitely discussed him in passing in certain topics. So yeah, I would definitely do an episode on him gladly. Just going to use my pencil to sort of see what something would look like here. Yeah, I'm gonna change something here. Ursula K. Le Guin. Have not read that author, I'm afraid. You loved Cavalier and Clay. Nice, Black Phoenix. Thank you. Did I read any of Epic Comics Clive Barker stuff? I did, but I don't remember it very well. I did read that back in like the 90s, though. I just don't remember it very well. Classics illustrated by Marvel. No, I have not read those. I'm aware of them, but I have not read those. That's a potential topic. That could be interesting. Fritz Lieber, Michael Moorcock, Harlan Ellison. I've read a little Harlan Ellison, but not the other two. I'm familiar with them, but I haven't read them. Would I do a Max Immortal episode if you're not already planning to do one? Yeah, but not in the immediate future since I just covered Rick Veitch. I want to give some time. I'll definitely be doing an episode of Tick probably this year. Yeah. Did I ever like Savage Sword of Conan? Oh my god, yes, absolutely. The John Buscema art alone, that I can't wait to cover him someday. That will be a huge episode. Like John Buscema, that's an important author, illustrator. But yeah, do I like Todd McFarlane? Used to love him as a kid. Do I like him now? I respect him. I wouldn't say that I love the artwork, but definitely like respect him as a businessman and as a creator. So yeah, can't say that I like. I share, I think, interest in the same things that influenced him. I like Michael Golden, and I think that's basically what McFarlane is sort of trying to do, is his take on Michael Golden. But yeah, not a huge fan anymore. But I definitely used to be, definitely. I demand a 5-part series on Peter Porker the Spectacular Spider-Ham. You demand it, eh? I would have fun doing that. There's no question there. I'd have fun doing so many things. Like, everything you guys suggest is, like, I've never been like, no, I'm not going to discuss that. That's never been something that's, like, flitted through my head. Like, I want to cover all these authors, these artists, these topics. And the question is just, I only have so much time. All right, see ya, Mr. Sneezy. Thanks for jumping in. Appreciate it. What are my thoughts on classic rock and roll comics like Metallica? Kind of cheesy, but that is kind of fun. That Kiss comic, that one I should review someday. That thing's pretty goofy. The book that Kiss did through Marvel. That is sort of a piece of comics history. You know, I'm not sure if I'm remembering this right, but I believe Marvel also once did an official Beatles comic, I think for Sergeant Pepper. I have to double check on that, but I think that they did. That could be interesting to discuss. Music is definitely one of the bigger challenges for adapting into comic book form because there's no audio, and that's what music is. So you're sort of losing you're losing the main thing that it is. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't discuss what it's about or find visual ways of showing music, but it isn't the same as music. You can have an accompaniment, but that's still not the comic itself. So covering music in comics is very interesting. I think it's definitely a huge challenge to do it in a meaningful way, and I think that there are some people that have been successful there, actually. So that's a topic that I definitely would love to discuss at some point. I don't know the Chester Amachi Chronicles. Sorry, that's new. What do you prefer for Doctor Doom? Were you scarred badly or as a small scar? I think that the small scar is more interesting and tells us a little bit more about Doctor Doom. Like the idea that he's so vain that he sees that as a massive flaw that he just can't bear. I find that a little more interesting. I know, if somebody like Jim Lee takes their crack at Doctor Doom, he loves to sort of give him mountains of scars and stuff, like melted face that looks like Freddy Krueger. It's interesting, but I think it tells us less about the character. Cool question. Did any of you have G.I. Joe growing up, or am I too old for everybody here by having that? I love G.I. Joe, man. I hope it comes back someday. I hope it becomes relevant again someday. I think it's cool. I can understand how it's definitely tougher these days to make sort of a military comic and fighting terrorists seem sort of friendly to all ages. So that's definitely a big challenge. But I do love the characters in G.I. Joe and the idea behind it. Let's see. So a few of you had it. I had knockoff Transformers. I mean G.I. Joes, excuse me. That's awesome. G.I. Joe was one of the best parts of my childhood. Still have all my Joes, even the Street Fighter ones. Brian, wow. That's pretty deep. You had G.I. Joe, Tweed, nice. Lots of you had G.I. Joe. Okay, cool. Cool. You guys had a lot. Batman versus the Comedian. Who wins? Batman. Comedian is basically just a tough guy. Batman's smarter. Batman's much smarter. And I don't love, I think a lot of people that have seen my videos know, I'm not a fan of like Batman being sort of the perfect guy that's planned for everything and can like win every hand-to-hand fight. That gets old. I like a Batman with some flaws. But if I'm going to like do a matchup, I mean, the fact is like Comedian is sort of designed to be more grounded, and a more grounded character isn't going to win as many fights as Batman. If you did one on inking, would you focus on 3 inkers? Yeah, I probably would. And Andrew suggests, Joe Robinstein, Klaus Janssen, I think it's pronounced Janssen, and Kevin Nolan. I think if I did one on just inking in general, I'd have to do a comparison between several different inkers. I may not go with only those 3 that you suggested, just because those are basically all of the same era. And if I'm going to discuss it, I think you might need to expand that out to, a broader spectrum across time. So hopefully that makes sense. Who was my favorite Batman run? Yeah, my favorite is probably like what I got into when I was first discovering him. The writers sort of elude me, actually, but I was a really fan of Jim Aparo drawing Batman. I really liked his work on Batman, so that's sort of my favorite era. Will Bronze Tiger ever get the love he deserves? Who knows? Guy's sort of one of those perennial second stringers, huh? What I'm going to do, I'm going to switch things up just a little bit. Any chance anybody in the chat room is local to the Seattle area and planning to go to, Emerald City Comic Con? I only have 1 day off, so I can only attend for 1 day. I'll be there on Friday this year. And I'm not looking for anything specific. Just sort of going to just be wandering around, looking at old issues, looking at t-shirts, things like that. But just curious if anyone else is going to that one. I think it is a nice convention. Thoughts on Marvel Zombies? It's okay. You talk about work quite a bit. Can I ask what it is you do? The only reason I talk about work quite a bit is just because it takes a lot of my hours. It's nothing more than that. All I do is I sell used cars right now. And it's fine. It pays my bills. And I do like my coworkers. I like my managers, but it takes up a lot of my hours. More than jobs that I've had in the past, basically. And the schedule's sort of different every week, so that's a factor as well. So it's a challenge in that regard. It's a challenge. See, have you sold a Bumblebee at work? We don't sell Optimus Prime, first of all, because we don't sell huge trucks like that. But yes, actually, I did sell a yellow Beetle once. So I did consider that selling Bumblebee, and I thought that was kind of fun. and it was like it was newish. It was like I sell used cars, but the Yellow Beetle was I want to say it was a 2018. It could have been a 2017, but it was definitely on the newer side. It was in great condition, so that was definitely like really fun to sell. Not the kind of car I'd personally want, but they are fun looking, and they're peppy little things with more space inside than you might think. There's a lot to like about them. Used Cars is a great movie. Well, there you go. Don't be apologetic about being able to pay your bills, man. You put out a lot of good in the world with this channel, and I'm sure you make people smile at the dealership too. Some days, thank you for the kind words. Definitely try to be kind and helpful to the customers that come in. They're all coming in with, sort of something to solve, I mean, even if they're like just sort of looking to get like a luxury car because, now's the right time. They're trying to decide on the right one. A lot of people can be in challenged financial situations, and I really want to find them, the best car possible that's really going to help them sort of, just be in good shape, not have to deal with like, repairs or anything like that, like any major things. So I'm very happy with the quality of vehicles that we sell. Very happy. And we go over a lot of information with them, like in terms of discussing the full vehicle history, and we won't sell anything with like frame damage or that. So it makes me feel really comfortable that I'm selling people good cars. That's a nice feeling sometimes, to sort of have somebody come in and be like, oh, I need my first car and I'm worried about my credit, or, oh, I need a bigger car because we're about to like have a bigger family and it's like, we're up against the clock, and I'm like, I can help you. But it's not what I studied, like I went to college and I got a degree in marketing, and up until recently, that's what I've done. Just sort of dealt with downsizing at my company. So I need to, like, I sort of prefer to either have something in marketing, which is what I've always studied and done for work, or, if I could ever do something like this full time, like that would be kind of a dream come true. I don't know how realistic that is, but it's definitely something I'd love to at least give a shot. I'm trying to grow things. You're less than 4 feet tall? That's amazing. Do you have any recommendations on Fantastic Four comic runs? Yeah, man. I mean, you cannot go wrong with the Jack Kirby Stan Lee issues. Those are fun. They set the template. I'm a huge fan of the Walt Simonson run. He wrote and illustrated one in, it must have been the early 90s, I'm going to guess. John Burns is quite solid. Yeah, it's really solid. It's good 80s stuff. And then, what would I say? Slightly more recently, Alex Hickman had a really... Sorry, I just said Alex Hickman. I meant Jonathan Hickman had a great run. So, like, those four are sort of my 4 favorite. It's Fantastic Four. Those are my 4 favorite runs. Favorite Batman villain from the Norm Brayfogle era? The Ventriloquist. Yeah, the Ventriloquist. Creepy idea. I'm doing all right, K. Roberts. Thank you for the kind words. I remember in the 90s, Snake Eyes got so big that the title was called G.I. Joe featuring Snake Eyes. Yeah, it did. Have you created a sales funnel for comic tropes? Not a sales funnel. You can support the channel, with Patreon or coffee. You can do like a one-time tip here. Or you could go to patreon.com, comic tropes, and that will allow you to support the channel. I've got some t-shirts. They're priced pretty much bargain basement. I make something like $1 off them. And I'd love to create some good merchandise when I have time. I definitely have a lot of ideas for comics that I would love to write, but I am not in a position right now to hire an artist. And I strongly believe in paying an artist for the work that they do. So I'm not going to just sort of be like, hey, how about you take a commission off the back end? Like, I'm going to pay them for whatever they do up front. That's just always the way I've done. I've done other pitches before, yeah, like, because I'm an artist myself, and it takes a lot of time to draw something, so I want them to be compensated. And I'm unfortunately not in a position right now where I can do that, and that's frustrating, because I definitely have a bunch of ideas that I want to, pitch, but if you can't pay an artist, you're sort of at a dead end, you know? You know. Are you writing the unauthorized Infotron Origin comic? Yeah, exactly. Hey, Chris, what's your thoughts on Spider-Geddon? I like Spider-Geddon. I think it's just a blast to see all those different Spider-Men, so I like it. Probably not going to go to Joe Fest. I'd love to. I would love to be there and support Hooded Cobra Commander 788. He's going to have a panel there. I love G.I. Joe. If I had the money, I would love to start a collection of getting just the figures that were based on the comic books. As in, like, there are certain characters that originated in the comic books, and then way down the road, they got action figures. Certain characters from, like, say, the October Guard, or Billy, or Quinn. There's Dr. Venom. So that would be fun to do at a G.I. Joe convention. But, yeah. Snake Eyes. Hey, that's me. Oh, Snake Eyes, you're talking? What's going on here? Oh my goodness. Voice. This is a huge deal. Congratulations, Snake Eyes. That's awesome. G.I. Joe was, as a kid, my second favorite sort of toy. My first was Transformers. But as I've gotten older, I just sort of like G.I. Joe a little bit more in retrospect. There's a lot to like about it. There's a tough question. What was your second favorite toy as a kid? What was your second favorite? Not everybody's going to remember what their second favorite is. He-Man. Have you worked with Retro? You've worked? No, I have not worked with Retro Blasting before. Hooded Cobra Commander 788 has. Every year in July, he does a event with various toy and specifically G.I. Joe content producers, and I've done some things with him. What else? Constructs. I remember Constructs. That was fun stuff. Do you sell auction off the pieces from these streams? I saw how the Xenomorph turned out, and it's super cool. Sometimes I'll generally sell them for $50 to $60 when people, say that they're interested. That's the price that I set. I've sold a lot of them in person, just people like that sort of know me in the real world through friends or work or anything like that. Like usually friends of friends and stuff will often buy these pieces. But sometimes online somebody like contacts me and is like, hey, and it's just that like sometimes they're not completely finished. Like I may not completely draw everything on this Snake Eyes right now, and I would just sort of sell it as is because I just unfortunately I don't have the time to leap back in and always do more. So it's priced as is, but I think that that's a reasonable price because, you know, it's what they go for from artists. Usually a little more if it's completed or if there's a background or anything like that. So, anyway, the answer is sometimes. Beetlejuice toys. Oh, I didn't realize that there were any of those. That's interesting. Do you have the Mego superhero figures? No, I don't have anything like that. That would be cool. Favorite B or C list Marvel DC villains? I love Mysterio. Oh, that's a cool choice. Um, hmm. Um, yeah, I kind of like certain perennial underdogs that sort of like keep coming back even though they never really win. Um, so like I'm amused at guys like Stiltman or who else like in Marvel comics like Speed Demon or Boomerang. In DC comics, you know, there's a lot of like sort of Batman villains that I'm amused by that like never really get anywhere. Even the Riddler, yeah. Captain Boomerang, definitely. I would call Kraven the Hunter a top tier villain that has had some accomplishments. I wouldn't really consider him too low. Would love to see you draw a Gotham City skyline. Oh, that would be a really good challenge. I really like that idea. Yeah, someday. I guess when I notice that I've gone quiet, sometimes that's an indication that I'm running a little low on energy. I guess that's probably the case right now. So I'll probably just do a few more details here and just letting you know that I'll let's say yeah, like I should really be calling it a night soon because I am meeting some friends at like 7:30 my time, so gotta get ready for that pretty soon. But I'll work for a little bit longer. You like the Villains United for how it brought some C or D list villains out of cold storage and made some of them cool again, like Catman. Yeah, Catman was definitely beefed up at that point in time. I like that. I played Lego DC Villains. I beat the like main story, but I haven't gotten 100% on it. Is good, but not quite as good as some of the other Lego games. Yeah, not quite my favorite. I may some, but I don't have a lot of time for video games, so I haven't like really bought any others. So there's every chance that I could actually go back to Lego DC Villains and try to 100% it at some point. I've 100%ed all the other Lego games, so I sort of want to, just the ADD in me. Marvel vs. Capcom, Injustice 2. Look at all this cool stuff. Woo! Twisted Toy Fair Theater. Gaming platform of choice. It's not really of choice so much as budget for me. I have a PS4 that I enjoy very much. And I really don't have the budget or the time to get like a gaming PC or something like an Xbox One. So I sort of like decided that I would give a shot at the PS4 this cycle, and I've definitely been happy with the content that it's had. I just haven't had really much in the way of time to play it as much as I'd love, because it is a fun way for me to connect with some of my friends to game together. But yeah, the biggest challenge in my life these days, if it isn't obvious, is I just feel that I have hardly any time. It's tough sometimes. It's tough. Got a pretty big episode that I'm working on. I'm not quite sure how soon I'll have it done, but I'm working on reviewing a very important comic from Argentina. I'm excited about that. Probably the mainstream audience that I'm hitting aren't going to necessarily care too much, but I think that anyone that's like super into comics is going to find it really fascinating. So I'm pretty excited about it. It's a big comic to break down and discuss. There's a lot to talk about, and it's a big, long comic. It's got a lot of pages. So figuring out exactly which ones I'm going to cover for the purpose of the review is the toughest decision. But it's a big one that I'm working on, so I'm excited to have something there for you soon. Have I ever visited a Six Flags? Yeah, definitely. But it's been a long time now that I think of it, because I don't think that there is one that's anywhere close out here in like Seattle. But when I lived in DC, there was one that wasn't too far, and I went to that a few times. It was definitely fun. Went on some of the DC rides. There was a Superman ride, a Joker ride. Good stuff. It's definitely a different experience going to a Six Flags theme park than something like Disney. It's a big difference. It's not quite as immersive or clean, but you can definitely have plenty of fun. Will I ever do a collab with Chrissy and her art? Oh, that would be a blast to do some sort of a collaboration with my fiance. But off the top of my head, I'm not sure exactly what that would be. But yeah, I'm sure that we'd both be up for it if we had a great idea. I would love that. We definitely have like collaborated on certain little projects together, like little things, just because we both love making art. So never say never. If I'm quiet, it's just because right now I'm doing some fine detail that I don't want to like sort of accidentally mess up on. There. Did you guys know that Duke was supposed to be killed in G.I. Joe the movie? Yep, I do know that. What do I think of Arcade? Arcade I liked in that comic. It's called like Avengers Academy or something like that. It was about like a bunch of teenage superheroes that were all studying with the Avengers, and Arcade kidnaps them and puts them in the situation like Battle Royale, where they all have to kill each other, and they have exploding collars on their necks. It's pretty intense. It's pretty interesting. I thought that that was a really good use of arcade. Well, let me just throw in a few more details, but I really hold on. Was I meeting them at 7 or 7:30? Ooh, let me see, 7:30. Okay, I really got to take off in a minute because I am meeting some friends, and I'm cutting it a little close, but I'm having fun, you know. So be it. Mm-hmm. Who's to say that you guys aren't my friends, right? Can't pick friends like one over the other. I'll just throw in at least some detail here. Probably not going to have time to fully detail the boots or his right arm, unfortunately. The one on the left side of the screen. That's frustrating. I wanted to sort of finish it, but I really running out of time. Should have illustrated faster, right? But I also want to take questions, so that's always the challenge. All right. Superior should have taken the Matrix of Leadership. Superior was pretty great. The animation errors in Transformers are mind-boggling. If you ever look up, I did a review of a Transformers episode that has so many animation errors. The episode in question is called Carnage in C minor, and I reviewed that on a website called therobotspajamas.com. So if you Google that, therobotspajamas.com, Carnage in C minor, I did a review of a Transformers episode that has more animation errors than you could ever possibly guess that they could include. It's so extreme. Wow, it was something. That's all I can say. So I think if I was to sort of finish up this Snake Eyes, what I basically want to do is include sort of a pattern here. Like I want to indicate that he has on sort of a wool sweater shell over whatever sort of armor, etc., that he's wearing. That's how I'm envisioning this, and I want it to be darker. I don't want there to be too much white, like just sort of empty, unfilled white space. So that would be what I would do with the rest of my time, is sort of keep filling this up with very thin parallel lines to indicate some texture there. And then I'd probably roll it in on certain parts of his arms as well. Also to vary it up from the fact that I consider these trousers to just sort of be black. So yeah, I'd sort of be doing a little of what you're seeing here. Hopefully that makes sense and isn't ruining anything. I don't think so. I think this is actually working quite well. But yeah, so sometimes when I do the live streams, just don't time it out quite enough, or I just sort of run out of time, and that's frustrating. But at the same time, hopefully you get an idea of what I'm going for with this drawing. Do you see how that bit there sort of indicates a little more texture to the whole piece? I think it does. I think that was the way to go. Yeah. Maybe I can finish this. Hold on. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I just seen. What time is it where you are? It is 6:40 p.m. where I am. I am on Pacific time. So if you're... I live near Seattle. In the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. So I think this gives an idea of how I can use those lines not just to add texture, but to also sort of add delineation of some of the musculature, which I think would look pretty nice. So that's the goal anyway. But yeah, hopefully we all learned a few things about what I'm doing with the inking here. I learned a few areas that I'd handle a little differently, but overall I'm not too upset with what I've created here tonight. I've definitely had a good time talking to everybody, so that's important. And I hope you all enjoyed the latest episode on Black Condor, aiming for like a little bit of a funnier one with the working with less time than sort of typical, but still trying to always deliver something. I don't think I've ever taken a week off yet. Not 100%. So someday I'll have to. Not yet though. Not yet. Yeah, this is actually really fun. I'm enjoying this right now. I wish I didn't have to stop. I wish I could keep going, because now I'm really getting into it. But that's the way of the world sometimes. You just run out of time. All right. So I'm going to call it a break here. I really appreciate everybody being here. Thanks again if Sanity is here for that super chat. Really appreciate that donation. And don't forget his katana. Well, he didn't really have a katana in this version. This version was really just small knives and Uzis and stuff like that. So that was kind of an interesting... This is like the original Snake Eyes. Draw a combo, man? Yeah, I might next time. So anyway, I'm going to take off now. It's been a super big pleasure chatting with all of you. I had fun drawing, and yeah, I will hopefully see you in probably not going to be able to do one of these next week because of the work schedule, but maybe in like 2 weeks I should be back. So hope everybody had a good time. Definitely keep hitting like and subscribe on my videos. Share it with your friends. Promote. And until I see you next time, keep reading comics. All right, take care. Bye.